What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well. Now, today's first entitled parent story is honestly nothing short of astonishing. Unfortunately, this poor girl is put through so much stress by one entitled grandma and her granddaughter that she ends up having brain problems because of it. Entitled grandmother makes my brain collapse, literally. This happened 2 years ago. I was sharing an apartment with a friend, now my ex-friend from high school. Let's call her Flo. Flo was really lazy. She wouldn't clean the apartment or even wash her own dishes. And when I'd ask her to do it, she'd get mad and act like a freaking child. After a year, she decided to move. That's when the entitled grandmother of this story appears. She demanded for me to pay back her part of the money that she paid to me for Flo's rent, and also to pay the money she put in to pay half the deposit. I put in the other half. I didn't agree with this. So for a period of a month approximately, Flo and her entitled grandma harassed me, coming into my apartment at any time without letting me know they had keys, threatening to call the police, to call my mother, etc. The entitled grandma also threatened to take my furniture as a payment if I didn't give her the money. They caused me a lot of stress. I couldn't leave my place because I didn't know when they'd be back. And as both of us, Flo and me, were in the contract, I couldn't call the cops because it was still Flo's place too. One morning, the entitled grandma came around at around 7 a.m. I was sleeping, so it took me like 50 minutes to get up and get dressed. And when I got out of my room to say hello, the entitled grandma was really angry because she'd had to wait, and not so subtly called me a prostitute. She hinted that I was working nights as a sexual worker, and that's why I wasn't awake when she came. At 7 frickin' a.m. by the way, completely by surprise. She didn't even call. We had a big argument, because she's a crazy woman, and she even had the courage to blame me for the death of her husband that occurred like 5 months ago at that time, who was sick from the heart for about 5 years, even before I met Flo. The guy died in hospital because of his illness. It really had nothing to do with me. I actually only saw him about 2 times in my entire life. Now, going back to the origin of the title, entitled grandmother makes my brain collapse, literally. The next morning of that argument, I woke up and I was seeing double. I couldn't focus my eyes. I panicked, ran to the mirror, and saw that my left eye was completely crossed. I looked like a person with strabismus. So I rushed to the doctor, and he told me that the stress that perhaps had been caused by the entitled grandma and Flo was causing me to make my brain lose control of my eye, and that I needed to slow down and relax because the thing in my eye could be dangerous if it went on for a while. And that's my story about how a crazy woman caused me nervous strabismus. Guys, before we even dive into talking about this one, I firstly got to find out exactly what strabismus means. I have no idea what it is, never heard of it, and I assume the majority of you haven't heard of it as well. Let's go to Wikipedia. Alright, so, oh my god, look at that photo. Strabismus is a condition in which the eyes do not properly align with each other when looking at an object. The eye that is focused on an object can alternate. The condition may be present occasionally or constantly. Okay, yeah, that photo is a bit mad. Stress can do that to you. That's crazy. I had no idea. Wow, that must have been a horrifically stressful, incident or event that played out over a number of weeks, OP, for you to end up, having this sort of condition. I hope it's fixed now, by the way. It says it's only temporary. Well, can be temporary. I hope it was for you because you're looking like that for your life. That's not good. Now moving on to our second story of today's video. Entitled mother tries stealing my kayak from my car roof. There was a sale today at a warehouse type store that ends with co. Brand new kayaks were being sold for super cheap and fully equipped. We arrived a few minutes before opening, and the staff pointed us to where we could get a kayak. There were only 18 available, and only 3 were left. We took one, and 15 minutes later, they announced that there were no more kayaks available. Now, some people were disappointed, but no one really made a fuss about it. No one except Karen. She started huffing and stomping her feet in front of the entrance staff, claiming that you shouldn't advertise kayaks if you don't have enough for everyone, and that she deserved to have a kayak because they're just so expensive and I have a family to feed. How does that make any sense, by the way? The staff politely explained that they would receive some more over the weeks and that she could come back at that time. She waved her hand at the staff and made her way back to her car. At that point, me and my mum were loading the kayak onto the top of our car. My mum went into the store to get some groceries, and I stayed in the car as I wasn't feeling well. About 10 minutes later, I hear rattling coming from the side of the car. I took a look, and there was the entitled mum with 2 of her crotch goblins trying to undo the straps and take the kayak. I jumped out of the car and said pretty loudly, "May I help you?" Here's the conversation that followed. "Go away! We're just loading our kayak onto our car." "Yeah, that's my car. I'm gonna have to ask you to leave or I'm calling the cops." Can't you see I'm a struggling mum? I just need the kayak to make my kids happy. Look at them. They're so sad not to have one." Her kids were still trying to undo the straps, which they were barely able to reach. "Please take your hands off the straps, kids. That's my car." "Don't you talk to my kids that way. I'll have you arrested for something I can't say in fear of being demonetized, but have a look at the screen now if you want to know what I can't say. I just want the kayak and then we'll go. Why can't you do a good gesture for us?" "Because it's mine. And you're crazy, lady. I didn't even touch your kids. I'm giving you one last chance to go back to your car or I'm calling the cops." The entitled mum stood there with her arms crossed and gave me a defiant look. That was all I needed, and I called the cops. They arrived maybe 10 minutes later, and the entitled mum had gotten back to trying to untie the straps. I let her do it because I thought the cops would see her and it would just be more proof. And gosh, was I right. As soon as they stepped foot outside of their car, they asked the entitled mum to get away from my car, and they wanted to ask her a couple of questions. She huffs and tells the police that the kayak is hers and that she paid for it. I just show them my receipts and they say it's all okay. As they saw her untying the straps, they asked if I wanted to press charges, and I said, heck yeah. At that point, my mum was back, and after a brief explanation, we loaded the groceries and drove away. The police stayed with the entitled mum, and we could hear her screaming and whining about my kayak being stolen and how she will be doing something about this. Me and my mum just laughed, and I'm currently enjoying a relaxing fishing day in my kayak. Well, it's great to hear there was a positive ending to this story. This one actually reminds me of something that happened to me in my life. I guess my family really more than me, but I was involved. I'm pretty sure we were at some sort of service station somewhere, getting a bit of food on some family trip, and we all had our bikes on top of the car on a bike rack, and me and my sister, for some reason, were still in the car. I think just us two. My parents might have gone inside to get something, come back out, or whatever. When they came back out, there were only 3 bikes on the car. My mum's bike wasn't there. Now, we're pretty sure what might have happened is somebody, without me and my sister knowing, for some weird reason, had just, come up by the back of the car probably so we couldn't see and just taken my mum's bike off the car. But we're not exactly sure. We did actually end up going back the way we come along the motorway, trying to look if the bike had, maybe fallen off as we were driving or something. But we would honestly have heard it. If if you're driving along and something falls off your car, you're going to realize, aren't you? Let's be honest. It's a bike. It's not like a little feather. And we couldn't find it. So we're pretty sure to this day that, someone had just come along, taken the bike off the car whilst we were in the service station. I just don't know how me and my sister didn't realize. Thankfully, in this story, OP did realize because it's pretty obvious. But yeah, to this day, I don't know how we didn't realize that someone had stolen the bike. So there's still that little part of me that is not entirely sure, but I think that's what happened in that situation. And now moving on to our final story of today's episode. Entitled Group tries to steal the garage we rented. My wife and I both ride motorcycles, and we've started doing track days together. We've rented a garage next to our friends so we can hang out between sessions. Renting a garage is more than $50 per day, but it means we have space out of the sun, power for the tire warmers, and plumbed air lines for setting tire pressures or running tools. We think it's worth it. We showed up for our track day, and our assigned parking spot for the garage was filled with other trucks and trailers, and someone had set up in our garage. They were still unloading more bikes and tools. The guy even put down a rug. The head guy of the group said he'd rented the garage for the following 2 days, race days, and wanted it for the track day for testing and tuning his bike. He said he had a garage for the day booked at the far end of the track, and it's okay, you can go and use that one. Like it was a done deal. I told him no, that we'd booked and paid for this garage for most of the season for a reason. He got huffy and said he didn't want to move all his stuff. But I was done at this point. We needed to unload and the trailer was blocking the paddock road. I told him, sorry, but that's not my problem. He knew what garage he booked, he saw the reservation posted on the wall with our names, and decided to move in regardless. Plus, he had a garage to use, it just wasn't in a prime spot. I pulled the car in behind their truck, close enough to block the tailgate so they couldn't set up the ramp to get the other bikes out, and began unloading our own gear into the garage. He finally packed up, and his friends stopped unloading. Yeah, I mean, you know you haven't rented that garage, you see it's reserved in the windows, it's obviously going to be reserved, you've got your own one down the line. What's the, like, I don't know why you would even bother. Like, how far away is your other one? How, you know, inconvenienced are you going to be by going to the one that you actually bought or rented? You're setting yourself up for failure and a massive loss of time, because it sounds like a pretty popular spot. You know, you have to reserve a garage, there are lots along a big old line, and you can't just jump in. Why would you then try to steal someone else's, knowing full well that it's a very high chance that they're going to come and want to use it, given they've reserved it and their name's on it? I just don't know. Because you're costing all your mates loads of time by setting up, getting stuff back in the garage, going down to your actual garage. It just seems like you're costing your mates loads of time and losing it, because, you know, you're putting all your stuff in someone else's garage. Then, oh no, what a surprise, we have to put it back in the truck, go down to your actual garage, put it in that. Knowing this group, they'll probably just try and steal someone else's garage as well. I mean, lots of garages going on. Weird one again. Anyway, guys, that is going to do it for this episode of our /EntitledParents. I really hope you have enjoyed it. If you did, and you want more from me right away, please do check out a couple of other videos on screen. If you are new to the channel, like, subscribe, follow, all those things. It's massively appreciated. And I will see you guys all tomorrow with a brand new upload. Same time, same place. Have a good one, guys.